Hi, welcome to the new series by PlayUP, where we're gonna focus on making more money in your casino. The series is called Let's Talk Player Retention, and yes, we're gonna focus on player retention. But before we jump into details, we're gonna learn all the basics. So, what are the shortcuts? What are the techniques used? What is the thing that everybody's doing, and what are the things that nobody's doing? This series is gonna be divided into a couple of episodes, and each episode gonna be very easy or quite difficult. So we're gonna mark it with the stars, where 1 star means it's very easy. So today, that's gonna be very easy. That's gonna be basics. Let's do it. My name is Bartek, and I'm a co-founder of PlayUP, the company which for well over 10 years now been supporting casinos both from a technical perspective, but also the marketing one. So we've been building custom casino platforms. We've been customizing the existing ones. We've been supporting marketing teams in the area of player acquisition, but also we've been supporting player retention teams in making the clients, making the players to come back to the casino more often and spend more money in it. We believe that spending a lot of money on ads and bonus systems is a very easy way, but also very short-term way of improving the results. And we believe that building a proper player retention programs is a complicated, long process, but it does pay off. All right, so what is player retention? You might think of it, this is exactly where your money is. Player retention is getting the players to come back to you. Not look for any other casino, not look for any other bonuses, just stick around with your casino. From your perspective, it's cheaper to make them come back to you rather than acquire new players. So that's why you should focus on that part. And if you do it right, this is going to become the consistent income and a long-term success for you. Here we're going to start with the very basic definitions. So the very basic thing that you gotta know is player retention rate, or PRR. So besides the formal definition that you can see on the screen, what it basically tells you, it tells you how many players are actively using your casino after they're registered. So how many of them stay with you? You could think, how do they like you if they like you? So basically to calculate that value, you gotta define three terms. So first thing is, how do you define the start of the lifetime of a player? So that could be registration, but that could also be the first deposit, or that could be even the first time the player visits the casino, even before he registers. The second thing that you gotta define is, how do you define that the player is still active? Is it the player still making deposits? Is it player playing the games? Or is it just a player logging into the system? The third thing is, how often do you measure it? Is it 1 month? Is it 6 months? Or is it whatever, a year or two? So typically how it works is that as a starting point, we treat the registration. That's where the lifetime of the player begins. Then what it means that the player is still alive quite often is being understood as player is still logging into the system. And as a rule of thumb, you could measure it within 6 months. Different casinos do it different way, but 6 months is a safe bet for you. So let's take a look at an example. In that particular case, you got 5 players registered, let's say today or tomorrow, whatever. And then within 6 months, only 2 of them lost, and only 2 of them still actively log into the system on a regular basis. So that gives you PRR 40%. 2 out of 5 players are still with you. The other very basic term that everybody knows, and you should get familiar with it, is called churn rate. Churn rate, besides the formal definition that you can see on the screen, what it really means is that how many players lose the interest in your casino, how many of them stop engaging with it. So again, you gotta define, how do you understand that the player is still involved is still engaged with the casino? Is it the fact that he logs in? Is it the fact that he plays the game? Or is it the fact that he makes deposits? That's up to you. There's no single definition of that. But what's important to understand that churn rate is not just the opposite of the PRR that we discussed previously. So what's a good thing to do is that you could define the period that you calculated, that you measure it. My recommendation is to do it in 30 days period, so 1 month period. And by event or the understanding of the player's activity, I would recommend having a player just logging into the system. So basically coming back to the casino, like opening the website again. So in that very example that I can see on the screen, the churn rate would be 60%. So in day one, let's say 1st of April, you got 5 players logging into the system. And then on day 30, you got only 2 players. So you lost 3 of them. 3 out of 5 is 60%. So churn rate would be 60% in that particular case. The other term is average revenue per user, or ARPU. That one is pretty self-explanatory. So it tells you the average amount of revenue generated per user over a specific period. So what's the specific period? How do you define it? It's absolutely up to you. That could be 30 days, that could be 365 days, that could be whatever. I recommend using 30 days, so basically 1 month. So how do you calculate it? You take all the income generated by all the users and then divide it by the number of active users. And take a note, active users, which means you don't want to calculate whole number of all the players registered in your database. So even the ones that registered 10 years ago and never logged in again, you gotta calculate the numbers of active users. And as with previous definitions, what an active user, again, that's up to you. That could be the one who logs in, that could be the one who plays the game, who make a deposit, it's up to you. I recommend calculating the number of users that are logging in. That's a definition. So in that particular case, just to show you an example, if within 30 days you had 5 players with the deposit that they made, as you can see on the screen, you simply take the average of that, divide it by 5 because all of them were active, and in that particular case, the ARPU would be 80 euros. That one is really important, so pay special attention now. LTV, lifetime value. It's pretty self-explanatory when it comes to the meaning of that metric. So basically what it tells you is it tells you the total, on average, the total amount of money that the player will leave in a casino during his entire lifetime, meaning during the time he uses your casino. And while it's pretty straightforward when it comes to understanding that metric, it's pretty tricky to calculate it. But bear in mind, you have to really understand what you're calculating here, because that metric is being commonly used to compare the effectiveness of all the operations. And that's the way to compare the casinos between each other. That's the way to measure the performance of player retention teams or even marketing teams and everybody involved in business handling of the players. So it's good to calculate it, it's good to monitor it, and it's really necessary to understand where it comes from. The formula is simple, but be careful about it. So the formula is simply multiply ARPU, which we discussed a minute ago, with the customer lifetime. The tricky part is understanding the customer lifetime. So you have to define when the lifetime begins and when it ends. The beginning is, we kind of discussed that already. It's pretty simple. You just have to define, is it registration? Is it first deposit? Is it first contact with your website? I recommend the registration. date. But when does the player die? Is it the moment he stops to log in to your casino? Is it the moment when he stops depositing the money? Or is it the moment where he even stops entering the website or using it in any way? What I recommend using here is I recommend using the last deposit because LTV is the metric concentrated around money. So let's talk about money. So once you have that defined, you should also remember to compare apples with apples and peers with peers. Meaning, if your ARPU is being expressed in months, so the average revenue per month per user, then your customer lifetime should also be measured in months. So you shouldn't say that the lifetime of my player is like 2 years. You should rather say it's 24 months. So then once you calculate one value, once you calculate the second value, and once you multiply it, you get LTV. Are those 4 metrics enough to measure the effectiveness of your player retention? Well, not really, but today we are talking about the basics. So those are the basic ones. However, don't be tricked. It's not as easy as calculating just those four metrics. What's extremely important is players segmentation. So what you have to think of is that the players that log into your casino, all of them, they do it for different reasons. They do it differently. They are just different people. And you cannot think of them as just one huge mass of users. You have to think of them as different groups of people that have different interests with your casino. So how to do it? Let's see. So as I said, different players, they have different reasons to play in your casino, and they will also behave differently, and they have different needs. So just to give you a pretty extreme case, just compare VIP player that chose your casino for a very particular reason and compare that guy to just a casual one-time player that just randomly logged in because he never used any online casino. So they will behave differently. They will value different things that you give them. They will also have different problems, different struggles, and they will be afraid of different things. So what's important for you is that you got to understand that there's not just one group of people that use your casino. There's even not 2 or 3 of those groups. There's a number of them, and you got to define it in the right way. I'm going to show you how to do it a little bit later. But right now you have to also be aware that if you do it right, you will get the following benefits. You will be able to do the really targeted marketing. So in other words, you will be selling the things to the people that are willing to buy those things rather than randomly communicating the values that nobody cares about. What you're gonna also be able to do is you will be able to improve your resources allocation, which means you will not waste time and money of your team, of your service providers, of your budgets to do the things that nobody wants. I mean, if your particular group wants that particular thing, do it, but don't waste your resources on just shooting in the dark. Also, you will be able to better predict the next steps of your players. So I don't think I have to explain why this is important. You will be able to do the communication which really matches their needs. You're going to be able to use the language they're looking for and they understand. And as a result, if you do all of that in a correct way, you will gain the real competitive advantage over your competition. So as I said, there's not just one way to create groups or segments of your players. There's a number of them. So you could divide them by the demographics, meaning age of your players or groups of ages or gender or location or language they use. You should also take a look at the gaming preferences they follow, meaning what types of the games they play. Is it poker? Is it slots? Is it crash games? The stake levels they do, or for instance, the device or the platform they use to use your casino. You could also group your players by the deposit habits they have. So how frequently they do deposits, how high are them, what are the preferred payment methods. The other thing which is worth taking consideration is the player loyalty. So you could have separate groups of new players, of casual players, of high rollers, of VIP players. Pretty often casinos also divide the players or segment the players by the behavior, meaning how often do they log into the casino, or again, what are the game preferences, or for instance, do they play poker on weekends and slots in the week time? And of course, playing frequency and session duration, meaning how much time does the player spend in a one-time session with your casino, for instance. So what will players get out of it? Because that's very important as well. So first of all, they will get personalized experience. So as you can clearly see, the player who's 20 years old and just casually logs into your casino, they want to get way different experience than a seasoned player that does it every day and spends humongous amounts of money in a casino. They want to experience different thing, and you will be able to give it to them. You will also be able to craft better loyalty programs, again meeting the expectations of the certain groups. You will also be able to prepare or get them the tailored customer support. So again, following the example that I gave, the VIP player will expect way different customer support, way different level of service than just a casual player that probably will not use the support whatsoever. And then you will be able to match the communication. And I don't mean that it will give you better LTV or better income. I mean that the player will just feel better when playing your casino. All right, so now you know that you want to group your players, and you probably sense that you have all the data that you need somewhere in your database. If you don't, well, you get a problem and you have to rethink your platform. But let's assume you do, because that would be most likely the case. So the question is, how do you utilize that? I mean, how do you get to the point where the groups really exist, and how do you get to the point where you can name them and you can track them? So the following tools will play in your favor. Most likely you have the CRM somehow connected to your platform or even integrated within the platform. So CRM is a great start, because it will tell you the demographics of your users. Some of them will tell you the behavior. Some of them even have the options for player segmentations, and it will help you manage it. So that's the first place to look at. Then the other thing is the admin dashboard of your casino. Depending on the platform that you use, that will give you just bits and pieces or even full information that you might need. So I'll definitely take a look over there. Some of the platforms have also integrated what's called the player segmentation modules, meaning modules dedicated to creating, managing, and utilizing all the data and all the information that we just discussed. So if your platform has it, definitely that's the place to go. And last but not least is any kind of business intelligence tools. So you might think of Power BI or Tableau or a number of them. The great news about that is that they are capable of working on the raw data. So if your casino platform gathers the data, but you don't really have tools, or the tools are not good enough to analyze the data and to pull the data from your database, these tools will do it for you. They could be quite quite sophisticated, and they could be quite difficult to work with on the very beginning, but they are really powerful, and they will bring all the information that you need for sure. Once you understand the basic metrics that we talked about, once you understand that you have certain segments of the players in your casino, once you create those segments, how to work with them, what to do with them. So first of all, you got to create a habit of tracking those metrics. It's not just a one-time thing. It's not that you create those metrics and never look back at them. So create a habit where you monitor them every month. Some people do it even more often. Then once you create the groups, the segments of players, you should try and understand the preferences and habits inside every group, which then will allow you to get to the other point, to analyze the trends and to foresee and to use the fact that if certain thing happened within one group, it's highly probable that it will happen in the other group as well. So the moment you see it, the moment you understand it, you will be able to plan around it, plan the marketing campaign, or plan the bonuses, or plan, whatever. It's also worth monitoring the social media engagement. Obviously, some of the groups of your players will never post anything in social media regarding their iGaming experiences, but the other ones will do, especially the younger ones. So when you're going to monitor that, you will be able to better understand the needs. And obviously, once you understand the needs and once you're able to foresee what will happen in the future, you are starting to win. You will be able to create such campaigns and create such a value that will get the players to come back to your casino. And that's the ultimate goal that you have. So summary of all that would be: try to get into their heads, try to understand them, and that will make you rich. That's it for this episode. Thank you for your attention. As I said on the beginning, that was the first episode where we covered the very basics of improving the player retention in the casinos. In the next episodes, we're gonna jump into more sophisticated techniques of improving that retention. Stay tuned. Thank you.